Welcome to Wednesday Watercolor here at Church of the Palms, and I'm Kathy Futrell. Looking forward to working with all of you today, and we're going to do a composition with a crab. Let's see what happens. We're going to have fun. Here we go. I thought of the idea for the crab, but the truth is the inspiration. So I did this painting last week, and just to play around with a blue stone crab. And I found this, well, actually I found this first, which gave me the idea. This is John Ruskin, and it's called a velvet crab. And I thought I would work with this shape today. Now there are lots of different crab shapes. As a matter of fact, Louise handed me this and said this was from one of her art books. It's basically talking about building the body of the crab with the pinchers, and then the legs that come out from the crab. And they're different bodies. Stone crabs are very popular here in Florida. There are all kinds of little hermit crabs. There's different kind of crabs you could do. But I'm going to work with a basic little body. This particular one, the velvet crab, just caught my eye, and I thought what fun it would be to work with a sketch of a crab. So if you exaggerate the pinchers, if you change the colors, if you want to do whatever. And my instructions today are simply draw it, observe proportions and details, use some creative color, warm and cool. Try to keep that in mind, like this yellow and purple that's so dominant here. I may use a blue and an orange. Contrast, if you can, with those complementary colors. Create texture, and I'm going to do a little sandy beach with the crab this time. When I chose this, when that inspired me here, I had already drawn these seashells on my paper, and I was going to go on with seashells for the rest of it, and I thought, I'll just disperse this crab, and I'm still contemplating whether or not I'll put sand in or not for that design. So let's get started with a shape and with a color. And I think I'm going to tilt this. Rather than making it a straight-on observation of the crab, I think I'm going to turn my crab shape and give it a little, let it be heading out to the ocean or someplace. Now, I know they have eyeballs. We used to catch crabs off the pier in North Carolina when I was a little girl, and we would use a fish line. We just dangle off the edge of the pier with a string and some bait. Gosh, I can't even remember what bait. Seems like we used shrimp to catch them. That doesn't sound right. I don't know what it was. But then we would use a net. And so when the crab caught on to the bait, then we would pull it up, and my sister and I take turns with using the fishing net and get that crab up, put it in a bucket. So here, what I've started with is just the body of the crab, and I want to get these pinchers, so I'm trying to go opposite. Sometimes these crabs lose some parts, but let's try to let this one have a whole. So here are the pinchers, and I'm going to let this one curve a little bit more so it can fit onto the page. I'm also keeping in mind the composition and the arrangement here. I might have to add some seashells if I have too much negative space, but I can always come back and add that later. I am looking at just the shapes I see, okay, and then here goes the pinchers, and that is not quite the right shape. Seems like this one's a little bit big. Let's curve it a little less. I think that goes like that. So again, it's a matter of doing some observation of what you have. I went to the internet and looked at different crab shapes. So that's how I came up with the image of the blue crab. This one, as a velvet crab, I'm not even sure where you would have these. So here's how you could do the rest of the legs, is you just start with a line that can help you. It's kind of like doing a palm tree. You begin with a line for your frond, and then go from there to add. Now, the reason I like this right now is that it's sort of like when I'm doing my flower compositions, I do want, see, 1, 2, 3. So I've got 1, 2. The third one is coming this direction, and this one is a little shorter. Okay, so I've kind of built this like a spider, doesn't it? Now I can go back and finish up my sections. Now we can put as much detail as we want to, and we can use this John Ruskin beautiful watercolor that was done in 1870. Because it is over 100 years old, it's not really considered like plagiarism to copy another artist's work, but what we want to do is be inspired, if you don't mind my saying that, simply inspired, and we'll take it to another level and do it in a little different vein. So I'm almost done with my legs. I've noticed that these bottom shorter legs have some interesting little shapes. All right, and these have pointy sections, and 1, 2, 3, and then this one I'm making a little bit long. I think I can get away with that. Maybe I can vary that joint just a little bit here. Okay, and the number 2, actually this one is quite a bit longer and has a section, so that it's not that difficult to get these legs done. We just have to pay attention to where we are. At least that's my observation at the moment, is where am I? Oh yeah, I'm right there. Okay, and this has a point. I like that leg. That one is my favorite leg so far. You know, when you say, oh, hey, I got one right. It's not a great average. Okay. All right. Here we go. I have a crab. Now, what are we going to do with this crab? Well, we're going to have fun. So the first thing I wanted to do was to kind of give a color, get a color started with, and I'm going to keep in mind my blue-orange, but I might also start with a little yellow-purple, and that might be a double complementary color scheme, which means I won't use a lot of red and green. Why is that? Well, I'm thinking that the crab is a natural. Sometimes they do have some very bright colors, and there is nothing wrong with using some really bright colors, and you could even get very playful with this and just make it a little different than your average, you know, like, oh, is that a stone crab, or is that a, you know, you could say, well, it has lots of different, you know, what kind of crab is this? I'm going to let it kind of blend in a little bit. The drawing is going to help us segregate the background from, now I'm using my paper, it's just barely taped down, and I'm using a lot of water too, and I want to get some good pigment going, but I also don't want to lose all of the light areas. There's some lovely, I think I will put this up here. I am totally being inspired by this painting that John Ruskin did. So this is, no, I don't want it quite that bright up there. Let's tone it down. And let's get some color down here. So the sand is going to be wet. Kind of have it could be, I could even make an ocean wave. If I moved it down, I might have put a sense of a wave, or maybe I could have a wave here that the crab is running away. And again, I might just add some shells, and then again, I might just be going with texture. All right, so I have some orange that I'm going to integrate with this yellow. And I'm going to start looking for the orange that might actually be in the crab. And I see some lights and more here. And so yes, this is fun. With it as wet, I can help to shape what's happening now. I'm going to go with some of my blue. So the complement of my orange is blue. This is my cerulean, and I like mixing it with my cobalt. And this will become a little bit of contrast. I will add some shadow using my flat brush to kind of work around. I know I'm going to use some blue and purple in the shell as well. There be some light on the crab. I don't want the crab to be light against dark. I want to integrate the lights and the darks. And so this, by using this wet and wet, it will help to make the sand or this background appear very watery. Now a lot of the detail will come when this dries a little bit better, but the edge, as I go, is getting drier and drier. And just keep adding my blue and moving around these legs. And so I'm kind of making this, figuring this out as I go along. This is my purple. It's called purple amethyst. But if you don't have a good strong purple, just simply go with one of your wonderful reds like alizarin or rose madder. I'm not really worried about transparencies right now. I'm just thinking about color. And then just take some of your blue. Now this is a wine color, and I think I want to use some of that. So it's in the purple family, but I'm looking for indications of this crab and what it might be doing. And I think at this point, let me put a little in the background. I'm going to switch to a round brush. I will be adding really detailed shadows to the crab. I think that helps to place him on the ground. If that makes sense. So he's sitting on something, and it's a surface. But I want to integrate a little bit of the purple into this background, and I'm thinking of balance, of moving the color across the page just a little bit. Here is my really nice purple, and it is starting to dry, so I have to work real quickly and then start moving into my detail. I think that's already dry up there. So what I also want to do is, before I go much further, I want to do a little splatter. It'll give a soft shadow, a soft texture, and then I'll do a little bit more texture later. Now, I stuck this, you can use a stiff bristle brush. This one is still soft enough, but it was a little shorter than my other brush. I stuck this in to do the splatter. And I want to do, I think...
I thought you had to use a round brush.
You can use a toothbrush. No, I usually use a stiff, like an acrylic brush, but this one works pretty good too. This will work. A round brush, I get it will still work. Oh, that's different. Yeah, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you could do that. As you're right. You are absolutely right. I do my splatter like this.
Yeah, I think that's much better. Yeah.
It's just now we're gonna get a soft texture, and I don't mind if it gets on the crab. Okay. I'm just doing a little soft texture, but we can do that again later, and it will be a harder texture. All right, so I'm switching to my round brush, and we're going to start some detail and contrast. So I'm using the blue with the purple. I'm mixing a little touch of gray and a little touch of orange, which will give me kind of a gray color. And these areas where I want to start accentuating my darks and details. And it'd be a little loose to start with. Oh, I really was meaning to go here. This is still wetter than I thought it was. So I'm going to use it to get some of those shadows in, rather than the detail that I had envisioned at the moment. And I can still start doing a little bit of that. And just add that line for shadows. All right, while I'm letting this dry very quickly, I will show you the difference between working here and having done what I did here, because the crispness of the white background allowed me to paint this particular one just with hard lines and paint exactly where I wanted to go. So in the colors that were in these little joints, I could take and just make my little points like so. Where I had an area like this, I could put in my orange and leave a spot and then come in and soften that like doing a cherry or a little red ball. You've seen me do the seashells, but you see what a fun composition it can be just by adding some things. So this seems really dull right now and I want to brighten it up. So let's go back to some blue and purple. I'm also going to use a little bit more of the orange in a deeper kind of burnt sienna orange. And again, if I can get my blue a little stronger here, I'm really going to play with these two complements. Sort of a, now let's see, I'm really still wet. At this point, I would go and get a cup of coffee and then come back. We could let this dry and maybe proceed in about 10 minutes when it really is dry.
If we could turn the camera off.
If we could do that and then come back. And the truth is, it will really I'll be able to show how to finish because this is just a little too wet to work.
Okay, we'll take a quick break.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's do that. All right, thank you. I'm sorry I had to take that break, but sometimes this is what you have to do with your watercolor. You must let the paper dry. This still has a little coolness to the touch, but I'm going to go ahead and start some detail. No, it's okay if you are still working, don't mind me, but now see how my paint is allowed to stay in place instead of blending and being soft. What I want to do is work with some complements of my yellow orange with my blue purple. So that has become my color scheme. And I'm really going to just not completely finish for you right now, but I sure want to show you at least one side of the crab in how I would add some lovely detail and get some blending and some lights and darks and some shadows going. So by using these two colors, my purple, blue, and every now and then I want it to be a little bit more blue. And the areas where I'm trying to darken, I put in the shapes that I'm seeing, and then with another brush, sometimes I keep a paper towel handy too, take a little water and pull that color to have some variation, sort of making a little more blue than a little more gray than I had intended. I'm trying to brighten up my blue here. And again, I'm just supposed to be adding water at this point. Okay, so that gives a little softer touch. Here is back to my darker blue and this shape. And I'm just making some observations and then adding my water. So this is allowing some of that yellow to show through. And this is a soft edge. So I made a hard edge, but I changed the hard edge to a soft edge. Same here. Just by adding the water. So now I'm beginning to bring this into life a little bit more. And back to my blue on the claw. And I see some blue. This is really more violet here. There's lots of there's a lot of color that's going on. And then the water to soften that edge. I still, after this dries, I probably will still go back and add a few more linear strokes. Now this does turn into a little bit more of an orange color here. So I'm going to extend that. This has a little orange here. You have to remember which brush is doing what. This is my water. It's a good thing when your brush is a little different color. All right, so I still want to darken a little more in here. And again, this will have a little shadow to the edge, a little detail here, a little detail there. And I'm inclined to go ahead and fix this shadow so it works a little bit too. It's as though the crab claw might be making a much more serious shadow than the rest of the legs because it's such a bigger item. I'll extend that a little bit more. Okay, just for that blue purple. All right, so the same thing just happens as you move through the rest of the crab in doing the yellow, orange, or whatever complement that you chose to play with. And then again, you might have a different kind of color scheme in mind. I want to talk someday soon about limited palette of just using a few colors like the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, which is a great combination for making value, teaching you really about value. And there are a lot of artists that limit themselves in color just to accentuate that really great thing that happens when you're aware of values. Let's see, I think I got color on this brush, and that was my water brush. And this has a lot of the yellow-orange going on. In the strokes here of this leg. There is a little light showing. This one too has some of the orange, and I'll come back in with some of the colors in the joint. And I still want to add some texture and do a little bit with the shell. Oh, that's my water brush. This is my blue, purple. I'm just trying to get that shadow to be a little stronger. So when the whole thing is finished, it does help to have a crisp edge for your shadow. I do like to soften the edges though, even though I've gone around that with that darker purple. I'm going to soften it up with some blue here on the edge. So I would be going all the way around this and just getting this a little softer. All right. Now I don't want to finish all the legs because I think that the most important thing right now is for you to have time to work on your painting. And I'll come back with a little splatter. Oh yes, let's do a little more dark in here. There's some shapes that I didn't see before that I want to play with here. Soften these. And I do see some blue on the crab body. And I think that's because the crab is probably wet and doing some reflection. And having some color that shows up on top of itself is kind of nice. So there's some little bit of orange down here. And darker little things going on along this edge. Okay, so if I were to finish all of the legs, you see these are just drawn over here, but you start to get the idea. Let's do a little splatter, and I want you to keep working, and then I will finish and show you how to do the end. So the last little touch is putting in some splatter, and you see how much stronger the splatter makes. And just imagine finishing up, and that's what we're going to work on right now. Thank you.